The timing has to be perfect. I can't let my anxiety cause me to make a last-minute mistake. It took me almost 6 months to do it. Now I can't snap out of it. I'm Alicia Walker, I just turned 45, and I'm about to make a major lifestyle change. I've been married to Bill Walker for a little over 20 years. We dated and then were engaged for another 5 years. We have a daughter who is in college. This Friday night is the 25th anniversary of our first date. He is sentimental about these things. Bill arranged a special dinner for us at our favorite restaurant. Unfortunately, he's in for the biggest, scariest surprise of his life. Even now, I love the big goofball. Our first few years of marriage were perfect. I had no doubt that we would spend the rest of our lives together. Oh, we had to work hard and share the housework, especially after our daughter Elizabeth was born. Bill made me quit working until she was old enough to go to school. Once I went back to work, our main goal was to pay for college for Elizabeth and build our retirement fund. Our bank accounts soared from increased income from promotions and pay raises, Bill's wise investments, and an inheritance from our deceased parents. All the while, I had Bill's full support. Although we disagreed at times, we never really quarreled. We made love regularly and fucked a few times when one or both of us were particularly horny. I never ever thought about cheating on him, although I was regularly hit on by men at the office or even at neighborhood parties. It wasn't something I wanted to do at all. Bill was fine with me. Now I had to admit that I was being hypocritical. I publicly condemned cheaters but loved to hear the details of their illegal actions. I've heard of women suffering from empty nest syndrome. The women supposedly go emotionally insane and become whores or nuns. Personalities supposedly change overnight. Personally, I thought this was nonsense. I believed that not having children at home was a chance to strengthen Bill and I's marriage. Elizabeth was mostly independent before she left for college. She was rarely home in the evenings. We had largely gotten used to just being on our own. I saw no reason to prepare to make any changes in my life. Maybe I should have. I had more time to think about myself, and I wondered if men still found me attractive. Finally, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I looked in the full-length mirror with no clothes on. Where I had been smooth, I wrinkled. What used to stand out on its own was now sagging. What used to be flat had gotten the top of a bun. What used to be wide widened even more. I began to pay attention to men's compliments and ambiguities. Either I wasn't paying attention or the interest of men other than my husband diminished. I started exercising more, wearing more makeup, and dressing better to emphasize my best features. My breasts. Men's admiration increased. I felt better about myself. Still, I felt I needed something more, something different, something exciting, something playful and risky. I started reading stories about cheating and watching porn on the internet. When I thought back to what was happening at home, I saw no difference in the way my husband treated me now as he had before Elizabeth left. That was the problem. Everything was the same old, same old. Oh, I got compliments from him, and he never missed a birthday or anniversary. We still had sex regularly, but it was the same old compliments and the same old sex. Nice, but it felt like reruns rather than original episodes. I wanted a change, a burst of energy. I thought I was giving Bill a chance to make a difference. I tried to get Bill interested in different sex positions or different techniques to liven things up. The poor guy tried, but it didn't excite me. The sex acts were different and normal, but it was the same old Bill with his old cock that wasn't going to get bigger, more skillful, or talented. My orgasms were fake. I don't think he had a clue. That's when I first thought about finding someone to give me pleasure, maybe even become my lover. My priority in finding someone new was first and foremost secrecy. If I got caught, it would kill me because it would devastate my husband and daughter. That meant no fake night jobs or overnight business trips. Hotels or time with him or me is too dangerous. I began to think it would have to be a workplace affair during work hours. Even that would require careful planning. As I considered the possibilities from the office, I ruled out almost all men. There were a few nice single men there, but I heard them bragging about the whores they were dating, including some married women. I wasn't sure how they wouldn't brag about me. Each day at home became more and more dragging. Our routine was stuck in a rut. Something had to change or I would go crazy. Even the new sex toys provided only a brief respite from the boredom. Then it, or rather he himself, happened. He was Darnell, short for Darn. About 6 months ago, he had taken a mid-level position in the office. All the women took notice of his good looks and charm. I was afraid a couple women would try to rape him. They did it with their eyes, of course. Although he flirted a bit, he never seemed to seek any relationship other than cordial and professional. I noticed that he seemed to hold his gaze and smiled for a few seconds as he looked at me. My heart fluttered and I was soaking wet. Every few days he would stop by to chat with me and ask me something about my husband or daughter. Very discreet conversation and not disturbing to anyone but my lust buds. The first change in our relationship came when he invited me to sit with me at lunch. I knew this could be the first step to what I wanted, so I agreed. I hope this doesn't mean that the office gossip machine will now consider us a couple. I laughed and explained, I could use some excitement in my life right now. I don't think I meant, at least consciously, to let him know that there was something missing in my life, but it spilled out. Too late to take back the words, even if I wanted to. Our contact continued to be brief and casual. I learned that his wife, Mary Alice, was from the wealthy and they had no children. He spoke of her affectionately, but not lovingly. Her family didn't want her to marry him. If they fought, she liked to use the fact that she married him in spite of her family and her arguments, and he should appreciate that. I told him about my daughter and how proud I was of her. I described my time with my husband as comfortable, predictable, and unchanging. Gradually, I let him know that I was not satisfied with my married life. Eventually, I hinted at the lack of pleasurable sex with my husband. I didn't tell Darnell that I needed another man to have sex with. He figured out what I needed on his own. Darnell made it clear to me that he wanted us to be more than just friendly coworkers. I shyly admitted that I felt the same way, fully aware of the road I had started down. We took precautions. We tried not to look at each other longingly, no touching or overt flirting. We realized that everyone assumed we were friends who were happily married to other people. As a smokescreen, I even teased Ted, another person in our office, about being my office husband, and advised him to try harder to stay married to me. The distraction seemed to work. The situation finally escalated the day we happened to be alone in the elevator. Darn pressed the stop button. I guessed right. He brazenly pounced on me with a passionate kiss, which I eagerly responded to. Our hands quickly explored each other's bodies. In the minutes that followed, everything was forgotten except the pleasure. I didn't want to interrupt him when he released the button and the elevator moved. All he said was, "We need to talk." I nodded my head. I didn't have time to do anything that day except think about our time in the elevator. There was a little guilt, but the feeling of "I want more" blocked out my guilt. Darn called me and offered to tell my husband that I would be a few minutes late today. I wondered if he wanted to go further in our sexual exploration this evening. I was really hoping he would. He came to my office and immediately established that we shouldn't stay out too long. There was no attempt on his part to approach me. Instead, we talked. We agreed that we both wanted to be intimate with each other, but had to be extremely careful about it. We both went home and started thinking of a safe way to do it. I've read that cheating women often tell their spouse that the marriage didn't suffer because her husband could still have sex with her whenever he wanted. But that's not true. I immediately started treating Bill differently, without realizing it myself. I guess I wanted to pick on him so I wouldn't feel so guilty when I thought about a lover. I had been with my potential lover in my head almost constantly, starting with the elevator episode. Things Bill did at home that were minor irritants I had previously ignored now became an issue. I was bringing up issues in raised tones. Things I used to ask him to do, which I knew he would eventually do, now made me irritated if not accomplished quickly. I was becoming a bitch. Meanwhile, Darnell had come up with a solution for our meetings. He rented a small spare office space 1 floor up in an office building. I asked how he could afford it. He replied, "It's a perk of having a rich wife." I didn't complain. We got some basic furniture, which most importantly included a large sofa with a bedspread that was easy to wash. We christened it as soon as we could. The sex with Darnell was even better than expected. We were euphoric and professed our love. I'm pretty sure we really meant lust, not love. When we met, we left the tables at different times. One would take the stairs and the other would take the elevator. We never went in and out of our love nest together. Our days and times for sex were random and varied. Every once in a while, we would take a few days off to reduce the likelihood of being caught. We tried to think of every way our spouses could catch us. We constantly checked for cameras or recording devices in the office and at home. We never emailed each other. Darnell got us special cell phones that we only used to communicate with each other. If our spouses saw the phone, they would be told it was a company phone only. We chose passwords unrelated to our families that could be easily guessed. We silently thought of everything. As my relationship with Darnell grew, the desire to be with him kept growing. I still loved Bill, but he no longer made me feel the way Darnell did. Bill was an old pair of comfortable slippers that I so didn't want to throw away. Darnell was a new pair of shoes that were too expensive, but that I just had to have. Darn was the first to talk about the possibility of us being together forever. Together, we worked out a definite plan. Bill and I added each other's name to our existing accounts. He was the one who suggested that the safe where he kept old jewelry, gold coins, and savings bonds should also have our names on it. I thanked him with one of our best nights of sex. It may have been Bill's body, but in my mind it was Darnell's. I didn't realize how differently I felt about Bill until Elizabeth arrived. Both Bill and I were happy to see her. The three of us laughed and told stories from her childhood. It was like traveling back in time. She took me aside and told me that my dad said I had been moody lately and he wanted to know what was wrong. Liz mentioned that I seemed normal to her on this trip. I said that Bill was probably right about something. I admitted that I was in a bad mood and suggested that I might be going through menopause. I assured her that our marriage was solid as a rock. It pained me to lie to my daughter, but for now I couldn't tell her the truth. The next time Darnell and I had a chance to talk, I told him that I thought Bill was worried about me. I said that we needed to speed up the decisions that needed to be made. What we had come up with was really unfair to Bill and Mary Alice, but we were already cheating, so what the hell? We were going to take all the money we could and disappear together. It wouldn't be that hard for them. Both of our spouses had access to more money, Bill through his job and Mary Alice through her family. Neither of them would suffer financially for too long. Darnell didn't like Mary Alice's family, so he didn't mind taking the family's money. I made some illegal excuse to myself to justify robbing my husband blind. I tried to make him treat me worse so I wouldn't be tormented by my conscience, but nothing worked. I didn't want to think about it. I focused on getting away with my lover and doing whatever we wanted, when we wanted, and where we wanted. Enough about traveling the trail of memories. It was almost time. I called the restaurant and verified that Bill had indeed made a reservation for 6 o'clock. Bill said he would be a little late for work and would meet me there. At 3:30, I was at our bank. I gave the girl my ID and told her that I wanted to withdraw all the money from our joint accounts. When she looked at our accounts, she had a puzzled look on her face. "I think you and your husband may have misunderstood each other. He was in this morning and has already withdrawn almost all of the money. Whenever that much money is withdrawn, we have to ask why if it has anything to do with customer service. According to the computer record, he said he was afraid of a stock market crash and wanted to pay in cash for a while. We tried to assure him the money was safe, but your husband insisted." "What about the safe?" "He could have put the money in there, but I don't work in that department. See the man in the brown blazer by the elevator? He might be able to help. Do you have the key to the box with you?" I went up to him and was asked to sign the register. As I did so, I noticed Bill's signature a few names ahead of mine. Either he had put the money in the box or he had gotten ahead of me. Big difference, huge. I went downstairs and we opened the door to the lodge. I was very anxious. I was terribly nervous. Our box was put on the table and I was left alone to open it. My heart dropped. There was nothing in it, except a letter. "Alicia, if you're reading this, you know I'm ahead of you. Darnell must have found out the same thing at the same time. When Mary Alice and I found out what you and Darnell were up to, we started planning. We considered divorce, but realized that your plan was better. Abscond with the money and disappear. You were both very good at hiding your affair. If you want to blame someone for what we found out, blame the telemarketer who called the phone while you were in the other room. Obviously, you didn't turn off the vibrator. When I pulled the phone out of your purse, all I saw was that the telemarketer had called. I didn't think about it for a while, but then I wondered, why would she need a second phone? There could have been several good reasons, but I immediately remembered one terrible reason: to hide an affair. I saw this as a rationale for your recent behavior, but I didn't hint to you that I was beginning to doubt it. despite other signs of deception as well. Remember when I bought a box of gel pens because I kept losing pens? I gave you a few of them and scattered them around the house so I'd always have them handy. Well, each pen had a transmitter that would send any conversations to my computer. I made sure you always had one in your purse. It took us a few days to get the whole story. As we planned together, we tried to help each other heal our broken hearts, and we fell in love. At first, it was revenge sex, but then it became more. The idea of going to romantic places with an exciting new lover was borrowed from the two of you, for which we are grateful. I've sent Liz my version, so she'll know what's going on in a couple days. I've assured her that I'll make sure the rest of her tuition is covered. She will probably want to talk to you once she gets the information. I told her about you and Darnell, so be prepared. While Mary Alice and I are traveling the world together, we'll keep an eye on you guys. I'm not sure where you'll find the money to start traveling, especially since your boss has been notified of your dating while at work. Oh, by the way, Mary Alice and I recently canceled your plane tickets. I don't think you'd want to leave the country without cash or credit cards. I told Mary Alice that I never told you that I had a nickname that I got in elementary school. I was called Toad after I played the part of a frog in a school play. This fact led me to think of another way of breaking up with your lover not mentioned in Simon and Garfunkel's song. My version of what we're doing is, go on your way, Toad. I'm sure it's not funny to you or Darnell. We love it. I guess I should thank you for almost 20 years of marriage and a wonderful daughter. Somehow, finding out what you really think of me as a husband and lover and what you plan to do to me makes it hard for me to behave. Anyway, I hope the sex with Darnell was worth it. At least you got that. Goodbye, Bill and Mary Alice.